Vincent, once again, I'm sad to say that we come here with saddened hearts because we have lost another legend. And this one is from the world of hip hop.
Yeah.
68 years young.
Yeah.
AFRIKA BAMBAATAA.
Yeah.
Government named Lance Taylor.
Sure.
I was not aware of that, actually.
Right.
But he passed away on April 9th. He is known, of course, as a disc jockey, rapper, record producer, and the creator of not only of the music and culturally oriented organization, the Universal Zulu Nation.
Universal Zulu Nation, yeah.
Where he helped spread hip hop culture throughout the world, and definitely was one of the leaders of
one of the pillars.
One of the pillars of hip hop.
Yeah, him.
In the beginning.
Kool Herc, Grandmaster Flash, generally agreed upon they're the trio.
That's true. Very true. Passed away too young. Definitely leaves a legacy. And before I ask you about your thoughts about AFRIKA BAMBAATAA, I thought Curtis Blow, himself another pillar of hip hop, had some very telling words to say on his passing. He wrote, "Today we acknowledge the transition of a foundational architect of hip-hop culture, AFRIKA BAMBAATAA. As a founder of the Universal Zulu Nation, AFRIKA BAMBAATAA helped shape the early identity of hip-hop as a global movement rooted in peace, unity, love, and having fun, and also that his imprint on hip-hop history is undeniable and will forever remain part of the culture's origin story. However," Curtis went on to say, "at the same time, we must recognize that his legacy is complex and has been the subject of serious conversations within our community. As an organization committed to truth, accountability, and the preservation of hip-hop culture, we believe it is important to hold space for all voices while continuing, to uplift what empowers and protects the people." This is in reference to some sexual abuse allegations that did come out against AFRIKA and BAMBAATAA.
Some very, very serious, very, very credible allegations that he was a longtime predator and rapist.
Yes.
And molester.
Yes.
And you cannot separate that from the Universal Zulu Nation, which really had the charge that it took in very vulnerable young men and women. And it seems like AFRIKA BAMBAATAA used his position to prey on these young men. And you know, unfortunately, that might be the biggest part of, or the bigger part of his legacy, or perhaps the more important part, because you do have to you have to grant space for the people who have been affected by this. And as much as we love hip hop, and certainly I don't know if you could say hip hop would not exist if there was no AFRIKA BAMBAATAA, but it wouldn't look how it does. Like, so much I was talking to my students about this, and you and I as 90s guys, like, so much of what we love about hip hop is from that moment with A Tribe Called Quest, with Brand Nubian, with De La Soul, with all of these basically second wave Zulu Nation members. But a lot of the Afrocentrism, a lot of the positivity, a lot of that was attributed to Zulu. But you got to reconcile that with this other piece.
Yeah.
So it's hard. I've actually been having a very hard time with this.
Really?
Yeah, like you said, give me your thoughts. I don't know how coherent my thoughts are because I really am kind of grappling with that because, you know, I think this man was a predator and preyed on the most vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's similar to R. Kelly, where if you are impoverished, if you are black and brown, nobody cares about you.
Right.
So you have this sort of really helpless population that is being preyed upon. And I have to say, I will say this, and then I'll leave it alone. As upset as I am, as complicated as Afrika Bambaataa's legacy is for me, I have been very disappointed in some people that I've considered heroes, some people I've considered musical role models, how they haven't been as clear in their condemnation of these actions. Like, I hadn't heard from Curtis Blow.
Okay.
And I have to say, I was actually impressed with what Curtis Blow said.
Okay.
And there have been some voices that I wish would have been as declarative and definitive as Curtis Blow was.
Okay.
And even that statement was really more politic than not.
Mm-hmm.
But
it was.
There have been a lot of voices that haven't been that straightforward. So
the thing that comes to my mind, and honestly, I'm all for condemning the actions of Afrika Bambaataa.
Right.
Right. I'm point blank. I'm fine with that. And as far as his place in hip hop, I knew of the man. I knew of his music. Some of the music I like. Some of it was like I honestly could take it or leave.
Sure. Planet Rock is all right.
Right. But what it brings to my mind, especially when you talk about him being a predator of you know, these young men and women and this population.
Yeah.
That, you know, that he was one of the Pied Pipers too at that time. It brings to my mind, where do we draw that line in our condemnation of these artists? Because I was actually thinking two things. One, you know, there's been a whole lot of hoopla about Kanye, because I refuse to call him Ye, who's kind of like stepped back on the scene with new music and all this type of stuff. And actually, a friend of ours, Daryl Charles, on his latest episode of Knockout Nerds, that actually I think this one is going to be going out in a week or so, was talking about how he is now at the point where he has to say no to Kanye.
Yeah.
You know, he was a huge Kanye fan, but his rhetoric and everything that the joke that he has turned into, he basically is at this point where he has to say no to him, right? And I was thinking about that, and it's easy for me to say no to Kanye because I've never liked the guy.
Sure. I see exactly where you're going with this.
But then I also started thinking about, there's been this big hoopla about this GQ interview with Jay-Z. And Jay-Z, you know, now is like this mega capitalist and all this other jazz, but he built his name, his rep, his money, at least the beginning money, was on being a drug dealer. His songs were about being a drug dealer.
Yeah.
He proudly talked about being a drug dealer.
Yeah.
And how and as a drug dealer, you are a predator on your population. But there's no condemnation of that, at least not that I have seen.
Sure.
So I'm wondering, where do we draw this line?
I think you have to figure it out for yourself, because to be clear, I think we're all hypocrites.
Okay.
I think we're all hypocrites. What I've said for years now is in 1991, 1992, Pearl Cleage wrote the book Mad at Miles, where she talked about Miles Davis abuse, and I listen to Miles Davis. I love Miles Davis, and you know, James Brown, notorious, you know, abuser. I think
So how do you reconcile that?
I don't.
Okay.
You know, I do the best I can. I think the least you can do is acknowledge these complicated histories.
Okay.
You know, like, much like you, and just do as a one-to-one. Like, it was easy for me to say, you know, well, Chris Brown, beat up Rihanna, so I'm never going to listen to Chris Brown again because how dare he beat up a woman. But I wasn't listening to Chris Brown before he you know, and they put R. Kelly in. It's like, well, R. Kelly, but I was never really lit. Like, it's very easy, and I do think you have to acknowledge you have to acknowledge these entire histories and actions. Like, if you did it, people can't be upset when people name it.
Right.
But I also think each of us has to acknowledge our own hypocrisy, because we are all one Spotify playlist away from someone pointing and saying, well, you support this person, you support that person, and, you know, do the best we can. So.
Okay. It was just a thought.
No. I hear you. But you know, again, look, we do the best we can.
That's all we can
And
do.
if you don't want people to talk crazy about you when you die, don't do crazy stuff when you're alive.